This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
10 minutes or less. Philadelphia Eagles. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 10 minutes or less. Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles. Clock. Let's go. Season rewind for the Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Well, under the new Chip Kelly administration, it didn't look like that was going to be the case early now. That opening week win on Monday Night Football versus the Redskins, damn impressive. But after that, 3 straight losses, including a blowout loss at Denver, where the Broncos put up over 50 on you, a lot of people had their questions about Chip Kelly and this style of offense in the National Football League. But in that next game, Vic goes down, and maybe for the best. In comes Nicholas Foles, and he leads you to a victory over the Giants. The next week, he goes on the road, beats Tampa Bay. Now you're back to 500 at 3-3. Maybe this thing might just work in the National Football League. Maybe you just needed the right signal caller pulling the strings. Then the next 2 weeks bring you back crashing down to earth. You lose 2 in a row, and you find yourself at 3-5 and at a crossroads in your season. And for me, week 9 was, to me, the difference maker in your season. This was the turning point where your season went skyrocketing towards the postseason. And you sent the Raiders crashing down to a 4-12 mark. It was the big matchup in week 9 between the Raiders, who were 3-4 and feeling good about themselves, and the 3-5 Philadelphia Eagles, who needed a win to right the ship. Nicholas Foles goes off, throws 7 touchdown passes, and the rest is history. Eagles win their next 7 out of 8, including a Week 17 winner-take-all NFC East Division title game against the Dallas Cowboys, in which they win. Finish up the season at 10-6. Your NFC East divisional winners. And so they're off to the playoffs. Nicholas Foles has put a stranglehold on his quarterback position. He is the man in Philadelphia, and they're off to play a home playoff game for the first time, and it seems like an eternity, in Philadelphia. And they played the New Orleans Saints, and it was just a bad draw for the Eagles. Even though they had their opportunities in this game, the Saints were on a mission, and that offense is tough to stop. They were able to get the best of the Eagles in that football game. And so the Eagles' season ends in Wild Card Weekend versus the New Orleans Saints. But it was a very productive first season for Chip Kelly. A lot of things to build upon. And now, no one's asking the question, can Chip Kelly's offensive system work anymore? It's how good can this system be in the National Football League now? And so you fast forward to 2014 in the offseason, and you look at this Eagles team and their free agents, and there's really not a lot here. And if you're an Eagles fan, you've got to be encouraged with the amount of resources that you have at your disposal and the guys that you have under contract and your picks that you have to feel really good about your chances of doing some damage in the 2014 offseason. Let's look at the list of Eagles who are free agents. You start with Michael Vick, Clifton Gathers, Nate Allen, Colt Anderson, Kurt Coleman, Donnie Jones, Aurelius Ben, and the last 2 players on this list are restricted free agents in Philip Hunt and Cedric Thornton. So you look at this Eagles football team, and they had 2 free agents that they re-signed already in Riley Cooper and a guy that missed just about all of last season with a torn ACL in Jeremy Maclin. So they brought back both of their wide receivers already. So that's a really good look for the Philadelphia Eagles. But you look at the rest of that list. Michael Vick not going to be back. And we all thought when Chip Kelly came along that Michael Vick was the perfect quarterback for his system. He was going to run this thing to perfection. And that turned out to be maybe the furthest from the truth. I really don't know what to make of Michael Vick in Chip Kelly's system. It seemed like a match made in heaven, but it just turned out not to be the case. And so he's on the way out. and he's looking for a chance to start, and he's going to get that opportunity elsewhere. He won't be back in Philadelphia. But let's talk about some guys that probably should and probably will be back in Philadelphia. You start at the safety position. I just named 3 safeties that are free agents for this Eagles team. 2 of them, they can find employment elsewhere. But one of these guys you need to bring back. You can't let all 3 of them walk. And so the guy that I think you're probably going to end up bringing back is going to be Nate Allen. Kurt Coleman, Colt Anderson, those 2 guys can walk. But I think Nate Allen, and look, I'm not a Nate Allen fan. I don't really like his game all that much. But I think it's a guy that, even if it's in a backup capacity, I think Nate Allen is a guy that you want to bring back onto your roster. Look at Aurelius Ben. Here's a guy that you traded for last offseason. He gets an injury, misses all of 2013. But Chip Kelly traded for him for a reason. Don't know if he's going to waste a draft pick and not keep this guy around. Aurelius Ben is interesting because here's a guy with a lot of upside, hasn't really tapped into that potential yet in the National Football League. I think Chip Kelly feels like he can get the most out of Aurelius Ben. And Deshaun Jackson is running his mouth again. And how many times can a guy come back to the table and want to eat? Look, everyone else needs to get fed first before you come back to the table for like the 3rd time. I think the Eagles brass is getting really sick and tired of Deshaun Jackson asking for more money. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Aurelius Ben because he could be the key to all of this. If they bring him back, that could make a guy like Deshaun Jackson very, very expendable in Philadelphia. Also, Jeremy Maclin coming off the injury is probably going to be something that the Eagles brass wants to take a look at before they do something risky like cut Deshaun Jackson loose. So, and there are some wild cards in there, but Aurelius Ben is one to keep an eye on. I think he's going to be back in Philadelphia. You look at Cedric Thornton. He's a restricted free agent, and he's a guy that I think you want back on that defensive line. You got some guys down there that are solid, great against the run, not necessarily going to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but you need to fill out that defensive line. Even if he's not back in a starting capacity and you're looking to upgrade that position, I think he's a guy that you would like to keep in that defensive end rotation at that 5 technique. I expect Cedric Thornton to be back more so than Gathers. And so I look for Cedric Thornton to be a guy that you look to keep around in Philadelphia. And to me, that's it. That's all the guys you're looking to bring back on this football team. So we go from there to team needs in Philadelphia. And I just talked about Vic not coming back. So you have a need at quarterback. Do you really trust Matt Barkley as a backup? We saw that story last year. Didn't end pretty for the Eagles every time he had to come in a game. Now, you could chalk that up to being a rookie in a new system. Look, you can make all the excuses you like. I just go off of production. And I saw the guy last year, and he was a turnover machine. I think you want to bring a veteran backup in and someone that can solidify the backup quarterback position for you. Now, not everyone can run the Chip Kelly offense. So maybe you go into the draft and find a guy that he feels comfortable running the offense with. Maybe you go out in free agency and find a guy to run the offense. Either way, I'm not sold on Matt Barkley. Neither should you. And so you need another quarterback in Philadelphia to back up Nicholas Foles. You look at the safety position. I just talked about your safety position. And look, the Eagles' safety position for me has always been a mess since Brian Dawkins has been out. They've been looking for safety help for a long time in Philadelphia, and I don't think they've found it yet. They went out and they got Patrick Chung last year. Really didn't like what the Eagles were doing at the safety position last year. I still don't like what the safeties are doing in Philadelphia now. And so I think you need safety help. And, you know, you drafted Wolf last year. I don't know what he is yet out of NC State, but you need more safety help. Whatever the case may be, I think you need to go find a veteran on the market in free agency. There are plenty out there, and you've got over $20 million in cap space available to you. So you've got money, you've got draft picks, you've got all the resources necessary for you to go out and do damage in free agency, in the offseason, in the draft. So don't be afraid to go look for some help at the safety position. That's one I think you need to target. And also defensive end, I just talked about the defensive end position and bringing back a guy like Cedric Thornton. I think you need a dominant five technique. It'd be nice to find a dominant five technique. I think you need to go in the draft and find yourself a borderline dominant five technique. There are some guys out there that can help you. I like the draft for your defensive end needs. That's where you need to go to solve that. You don't have a lot of needs. You don't have a lot of guys that aren't under contract. You're sitting pretty right now. If you are the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to love where you are as a football team. If you can build on the success of last year, look out for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2014. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles. You hear the clock. My time is up. That's been the Philadelphia Eagles. 10 minutes or less. 10 minutes or less. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab